The road is a shared space, and it's up to all of us, drivers, cyclists, and pedestrians alike, to stay alert and prioritize safety. Now that the school year is in full swing, we have to settle back into a routine. With school buses back on the roads and increased traffic during the morning and afternoon hours, it's essential that we all navigate these changes lawfully and responsibly. Joining me is Jordan Ewald, attorney at Michigan Auto Law, to discuss the best practices to share the road. I'm sure you guys see a lot of issues when the school year starts. I think it's probably common because we go through the summer and you're used to less traffic, less people on the roads, and then all of a sudden you have the added school bus factor on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is just kind of hit it right on the head, right? We're driving through the summer, a little bit less traffic, less stoppage, especially when you're leaving your neighborhood or driving through downtown or wherever you live. You're not seeing those school buses, you're not seeing kids out, especially early in the morning, right? Afternoon, they could be around, but when school's back in session, of course, your morning commute is a little bit more congested because there are school buses out, there are parents dropping off kids. So yeah, there definitely is an uptick in that when we hit those fall months and school starts again.
I mean, I can even say for myself, I've noticed school's only been in session for like 3 days here in Ann Arbor,
Mhm.
and the traffic is so much more congested. And I'm like, I need to be more patient. Like, just let it go and like leave a little bit earlier because you don't know how long it's going to take to get to the school, or, you don't want your kids waiting around for you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's fair for everyone. I mean, I live probably three-quarters of a mile off the expressway I need to get to work. And between my house and the expressway, I think I ran into like two or three school buses. They're all going in different directions, whether it's the high school or the middle school. But yeah, even then, you kind of have to be aware of, all right, not only are there buses that I've got to wait for, but you need to be more conscientious of kids crossing the street, right? Or parents who might drop off across the street and the kid walks over. So all those things really important for us to be paying attention to, especially, morning when kids are going to school, and afternoons when they're getting dropped off at home.
And I will say another thing I notice about children, because we have a lot of cyclists in Ann Arbor, and the kids will
Hmm.
ride their bikes to school if they live
Yeah.
close to the school. But kids don't always pay attention when they're riding their bikes. And like this just happened to my whole family. We were driving, and these two very young kids came in front of our car. Like, it was like a 6-year-old and a 3-year-old on bikes,
Hmm.
just went right in front of our car. And I was like, stop the car. It's terrifying.
Hmm.
No one wants to do that. But
Yeah.
it's like they need to know too. The kids need to
Right.
know, and they need to, and I notice it with my own daughter. She'll be crossing the
Hmm.
street and I'm like, look the whole time. Keep looking. Don't
Right.
just look once and then expect that someone's going to stop for you.
Exactly. And I think that's important too, is it's a shared responsibility. Like you said in the morning, obviously, or I'm sorry, in the beginning, for drivers, you need to be aware of pedestrians and bicyclists and kids, but also it's really important, I think, for parents to kind of talk to their kids, bike safety of when you get to a roadway that you're going to cross, make sure you look both ways. Maybe it's best if you walk your bike across the street. So you do have to take that pause and get off your bike before you just kind of run out into traffic. And then once you're in traffic, make sure your head's kind of looking where you're at, and what's coming or what's behind you, just so that everyone can stay safe.
At Michigan Auto Law, what are some common issues you see once that school year starts and people are sharing that road with the buses?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we see are people who try to go around the buses. That's something that I'm sure you've seen even in your commutes. People get frustrated. There's a long line of cars waiting for the bus to pick up or drop off, and you either see them go on the left side around the bus, or I've even seen people go on the right side, which is really scary, like onto the shoulder. But that's something that we see a lot. It's important to talk about that because it is illegal. In the state of Michigan, if a school bus is stopped or they have their red flashing lights on, that means that all the motorists need to stop behind them at least 20 feet. So cars that are traveling along with the school bus, but then also cars that are oncoming. So if you're on a two-way road and you guys are facing the school bus, you're going to have to stop too, as long as those red lights are flashing and the bus is stopped.
I've had this scenario that's happened. There's a bus stop right at the end of my street. I live on a
Mhm.
court, so like there's
Okay.
not a lot of traffic or
Right.
anything. But one of the kids gets dropped off right at the corner of our street, and I'm usually leaving to go pick up at that time. And the
Mhm.
bus will have its lights on and stuff. But then and I'll wait. It's a turn situation, so it does sort of seem a little bit weirder than like
Yeah.
when you're going straight on or you're behind the bus. But then the bus driver always waves me to go, and I'm like, do I go?
Yeah. The bus driver should probably not wave you in. I think it's always, a good practice to give the bus kind of the right of way. And along those lines, buses also have like flashing yellow lights. While the Michigan Motor Vehicle Code doesn't directly address the yellow flashing lights, the Michigan State Police always, they recommend that you drive with caution when you see those flashing lights and you do stop and make sure that you're being aware of anyone who's getting on the bus or getting off the bus, kids that might be milling around, talking to their friends. So anytime you see a bus with its lights flashing and it's not moving, it's a really good indication that you should wait, assess the entire surrounding, and wait for that bus to keep going before you continue driving.
So those flashing lights mean more like you expect like the stop sign, the stop arm to come out, but those
Mhm.
flashing lights mean stop. They're telling you to
Absolutely.
stop.
Yep, absolutely. The red lights on the bus when they're flashing, that does mean stop. The stop sign itself, it'll probably go out with those lights, but if the bus for whatever reason doesn't have the arm stop sign or however we want to call it, it's still important that you stop because that's what the law requires. And the stop sign's a really nice reminder and something that I don't think a lot of people know because I, didn't know this for quite a while is those stop signs have cameras on them. So I didn't know that until a couple years ago, but the bus stop signs have cameras. So if you try to go around it, it can take a picture of you, up to 200 feet in front of the bus. And they're going to get the make, the model, and then your license plate number. And you're probably going to get a ticket for that, for going around the school bus.
So they do enforce that. I mean, some places definitely enforce that then.
Yep, absolutely. And I think it's also important to know that if you're the owner of a vehicle, but you might not have been the one driving it, you're still going to be on the hook for that ticket. There is a presumption that if you're the registered owner of that vehicle, you're the one who's operating it. And even though they don't have, your face or whatever on that camera, if it's your car and it's registered to you, you're going to be on the hook for that. So just always with anything, make sure you know who you're lending your vehicles to, kids, family, friends, and make sure they know the rules, especially if you live in an area where there are a lot of bus stops and there are kids and pedestrians and things like that.
I never even really would have thought about it like that too.
Yeah.
That aspect I never even would have like I would have been like, "Oh yeah, take my car to my nephew or whatever." And
Mhm.
then what if he doesn't know? I don't know how well he drives. I don't drive with him a lot.
Right. And that's a thing that we see a lot as parents, family members, close friends are like, I mean, I've driven with them before once or twice, and I think that they're a safe driver, but it's really important that if you're lending someone your vehicle, not just to protect yourself from a legal aspect, but to protect other motorists, pedestrians, people crossing, just say, hey, make sure you know there's a school bus stop that's right down the road. You need to make sure that you wait for that bus before you go through. So all really good reminders for everyone, but especially important if you're going to be lending your vehicle to someone.
I think another thing I'd like to hammer in, it's not necessarily a bus thing, but there's so much more foot traffic on the road and all of us try to cross at the crosswalks. And
Mhm.
and I think in the state of Michigan now I'm not sure, but I know in Ann Arbor we're all supposed to stop for pedestrians and crosswalks, especially when it doesn't have that automated walk, don't walk thing.
Mhm.
And I've seen at the school where I'm scared sometimes when I cross the street to go to the school because I'm like, I'm carrying my 2-year-old and I'm going to get another child. And I notice that people are like stopping really fast or like, oops, you know what I
Mhm.
mean? And it's like, you're in front of a school. That
Yeah.
is, be as more cautious than you've ever been in front of a school, please.
Exactly. Exactly. It's know your surroundings, know the time of day, but when you're around a school, especially younger kids, I guess I don't know, maybe not younger kids, but all kids. If you're older, you got a cell phone, your nose is probably in your phone and you're walking across the street, right? So we need to pay attention for that. But in your circumstance, if you're juggling a couple different kids who are depending on you and may not always be the most cooperative in the moment, yeah, it's really important for people to be paying attention to their surroundings if they see people. And it's not always, oh, you're driving down the road, you see someone in your peripheral, and you think, oh, I'm good. But as you're getting closer to that intersection, make sure that it's still clear. Make sure that that person has stopped if you're going to keep going. If they're looking at you and they're like, ooh, are we making eye contact? Am I going to go? Are you going to go? Probably just let the person, the pedestrian, go, just so that everyone stays safe.
Yeah, a pet peeve of mine is when the pedestrian makes me go. And I'm like, I'm
Yeah,
stopped for you. Please just
right.
go.
Right. We're just doing each other a favor. We see each other. It's okay. You go ahead. I'm in my car. I don't mind waiting. But yeah, I absolutely get where you're coming from.
Another thing that I'd like to mention, and I feel like we're seeing more and more of these around the state of Michigan, and this is for pedestrians
Mhm.
specifically. They have those buttons that you press that give those flashing
Yeah.
pedestrian crosswalk. I would love for everyone to actually utilize them because
Yeah.
I we live in a college town, and a lot of when the university kids come back to town, they don't want to press that button for whatever reason. And I will be approaching them and not even know they're there, and then all of a sudden they're in the crosswalk, and it's
Yep.
like, press the button. The button lets me
Right.
know that you're there.
Exactly. It's there for a reason. It has a function. You press that button, it alerts the traffic signal, it alerts the walk signal, make sure that everyone's on the same page. So absolutely use those buttons. They're there for a reason. Press it, wait a couple seconds. Obviously, a couple second delay waiting for either, your light to turn or for the walk signal to come on is obviously worth it when you compare it to a really serious injury. And so we always recommend that people use the resources that are there for them, especially those crosswalk lines, because they definitely help people keep people safe and make sure everyone is on the same page.
So back to the school buses, the one time, and I was like sort of looking at what you guys, the information you guys
Sure.
provide. Um, so the one time you don't necessarily have to stop for a school bus is if there is a median in the road, so that if you're like coming and there's a median, you can still continue to go.
Yeah, so if there's what it's called a divided highway. So essentially, if you have traffic traveling in one direction and then there's a median, a grassy median, or some sort of physical barrier, traffic on the other side is not required to stop. There is a provision in there that if there is a crosswalk or some sort of, pedestrian walkway that connects the two, there is a responsibility for you to stop and take a look at that. But if it's just a median that's cutting between traffic going in opposite directions, if you're on the opposite side of the bus, you're not required to stop there.
Do you have any tips for, kids and adults that are waiting for their kids, like when they're leaving the bus and maybe crossing the street or
Hmm.
which way to go? In Ann Arbor, we have this rule where, like, with city buses, not school buses, but with city buses, they tell people to exit behind the bus, like they get out of the bus and then they cross the street behind it, so the person behind the bus, the driver behind the bus, can see
Yeah,
that person crossing the street.
right.
Do you find there's rules like that with school buses?
I don't think that there is a set rule. I think best practice is always going to be, get off the bus, look out, if you're going to go behind the bus, let's go with what, Ann Arbor is telling. If they're going to go behind the bus, make sure you're still looking, right? Like you've got that car that's behind the bus, but make sure you poke your head out and look for oncoming traffic or passing traffic on the other side and then proceed. So my best advice for parents or kids is don't be in a rush. Right? Get off the bus, collect your stuff, make sure that you've got everything in order. You don't need to be looking down at your phone. Look both ways, like we're taught, forever, and make sure that all the vehicles have seen you, they're not moving, and then when it's safe to go, that's when you can cross.
Are there fines? Like, what are the fines involved if you are someone that doesn't pay attention or doesn't care about the school bus?
Yeah, so there are fines if you do go around a bus when you're not supposed to, you pass a bus, you can get a civil infraction. There are fines ranging between $100 to $500. Those fines will double if you do that within a school zone. And a school zone is 1,000 feet in the perimeter of school property. And if you pass someone and you unfortunately hurt someone, you can have a criminal conviction or a charge made against you. And obviously, the penalties go up there as well as if unfortunately someone was killed when you passed a school bus. So, very serious implications, things you never want to deal with. And obviously, people's safety is most important. You don't want to hurt anyone, but very serious consequences all the way around for violating this rule.
Totally, yeah. Like I said, it's almost scary in a way when you think about it because you're like at the beginning of the day and in the afternoon at morning pickup when you're dropping them off and picking them up, there's just so many people around a school, and it's not just the parents and the kids, it's people that are going to work and stuff. And like, yes, it's just a lot of heavier traffic and there's a lot of people in the road crossing. The buses can't see as well either, I feel like. They're high up, they're
Yeah.
big, they can't You need to be more aware of what the bus is doing, I feel like, because they probably have a lot of blind spots.
Yeah, I think that's important too, and to recognize pick up, drop off, going to work, coming home from work, people are usually distracted. They're thinking about the next thing. I got soccer practice, so I have to get my kid and make sure that we're there. We only have 15 minutes and it's a 20-minute commute, get out of my way. Or I have a meeting in 15 minutes and I'm going to be late. So I think when it comes to picking up and dropping off, also getting to work, coming home from work, people are kind of focused on their next destination, right? Or what they have to check off their list next. And it's important to understand that while that stuff is happening, you have to realize that there are people moving all around. So be really aware of your surroundings. And yeah, the buses are bigger than normal cars. They don't have the same, configurations as a vehicle. And so it is important to take all of that into consideration to be, a safe driver, a safe pedestrian. Just anyone who's using the roadway needs to take all those things into consideration.
Totally. Before we go, I know you just gave a bunch of advice. If there's anything else you'd want to add or tell people while they're sharing the road with everyone, and just please, let's keep everyone safe. And I will say, but Ann Arbor specific, there's a lot of
Mhm.
construction right now, and it's like the beginning of the school year is harder because it's a combination of a lot of people being on the road and the school buses and the kids, and then a lot of the roads are closed. So then it's even more backed up, and I assume it's even worse if you were to do something like that in a construction zone.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the biggest piece of advice is make sure you understand and there's a dialogue about it, right? Parents who have school age children or high school age children, make sure you're talking to them. If your kid rides the bus, tell them what's the safe way, to come and go. And if you can be there when they get on or off the bus, that's a really great teaching moment to explain, okay, and this is how we cross, this is what we're looking for. And if you're parents of teenage kids, right? We always stress this, it's important no matter what, stay off your phone, right? Don't be messing with the radio when you're driving past the school. Make sure that you're looking at your surroundings. All of those things I think are best practice and best advice, but that added construction element, of course, that adds confusion for people, right? There's lane changes or detours that might have to be taken. People who are crossing may have to take a little bit of an alternate route if a sidewalk is torn up or something like that. So we can all do our part. We can all make sure that we stay safe just by taking a few extra seconds to understand our surroundings and make sure that we're on the same page with everyone else. And obviously, safety is the number one goal.
Well, thank you so much, Jordan, for being on the show again and talking about this important factor of safety and
Yeah,
driving.
absolutely. Happy to be here and happy to chat whenever.
For more on this and other programs, visit a2gov.org/CTN. Visit youtube.com/CTN Ann Arbor to see all that we have to offer. And remember to like, subscribe, and ring that notification. Thanks for watching and tune in next time to FYI.